this may seem a journey that is long, long past from where it started 65 years ago. But be assured that that anchoring 65 years ago is what allows us now to stand tall and proud, even as we see the ugly face rearing itself again of racism and imperialism across our world. We must never, never, ever accept that there can be first-class or second-class citizens in this world. And we equally assert today that there cannot be first-class and second-class nations in the global community. It is for that reason that we will work together in solidarity to fight the battles of our time, challenging as they're appearing to be, quickly as they're coming at us. For whether it is the climate crisis that affects us, or whether it is the scourge of war that is raising its head yet again, or whether it is the assertion by some who have not been elected to take power from those who were duly elected, we have a duty to stand tall and to protect the principles of democracy and the principles that are anchored in our Constitution and the principles that we committed to in the United Nations Charter and the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights. These may sound like a lot of big words to many of us, but the truth is, they are simple anchors that assure that each of us deserves the right to be heard, the right to be seen, and the right to be cared for. My friends, African-Caribbean solidarity received a new boost on the 7th of September last year when we came together for the first ever African CARICOM Summit. I want to let you know that it was your President's visit to Barbados in 2019, along with President Kenyatta, that allowed us, as I was getting ready to chair the Caribbean community, to agree that we should have that first summit. Alas, COVID visited us, and what was to be the first summit of June 2020 ultimately became the summit of the 7th of September 2021. My friends, out of that summit, we agreed to establish a permanent forum for African and Caribbean territories and states, and that forum would be jointly coordinated by the African Union and the CARICOM Secretariat. We agreed also to take steps that the 7th of September shall forever be known as Africa CARICOM Day. And we ask you, our brothers and sisters in Ghana, as we will in Barbados, to celebrate that day with the knowledge that those of us across the Atlantic can never be divided, not even by the forces of history or the passage of time. The establishment of this forum will allow for us to bring about synergies between the CARICOM single market and economy and the African Continental Free Trade Area. And it is significant that in both of these instances, our two countries lead the effort. In your case, for the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and in the case of Barbados, for the CARICOM single market and economy. We've also agreed that we should collaborate and work much closer at the United Nations, because many of our objectives are the same and our mission is the same. We may have different routes by which we must get there, but if we have the same destination and if we have the same purpose, then we have a duty to collaborate and cooperate with each other. We've also agreed that that collaboration should be heard as we raise our voices against the inequity of vaccine distribution that has bedeviled our world as if they were truly first-class and second-class nations of the world. We reject that. We reject that. We ask ourselves to cooperate equally on the matters of the climate crisis, and we do so conscious that each of us is affected. You here with the same coastal erosion, whether in the Volta region or the Greater Accra region, or with the flooding that has regrettably taken lives here in your own country in 2019 and as recent as last year in August, affecting your ability to produce food, affecting your ability to buy food, because the costs continue to rise. And now that it is compounded by the realities of the pandemic and the realities of the war in Ukraine, we expect, regrettably, that there will be difficult times, that there will be increases in prices continuing. And I say to you, the people of Ghana, that in the same way that we have in Barbados, to explain to our people that the cost of living that now chokes so many of our people is regrettably not national, but global in nature. For we only need to look at the impact that will be happening soon as we get our next shipments of oil, as we get our next shipments of food, as we get our ability to negotiate whether we can in fact get the shipping arrangements to receive that which we want to buy. But we know that we come from a proud and resilient people, and not even the combination of the pandemic and the climate crisis and the consequences of aggression in Ukraine can cause us to bow and to lose focus. Yes, the times will be hard, but our ancestors have shown us that even in hard times, we can rise above this and hold firm to the view that we are a resilient and dominant people, capable of moving strong ahead. It is for that reason, Mr. President, that when we look at the global architecture and the lack of fairness in the structure of it, we too echo your own cause and that of others, that the African Union should be given a chance to become part of the global leadership if it is to be legitimate and if it is to be morally accepted by us all. The G20 cannot remain 20. The G20 must become the G21, for we know that in the African Union you constitute the 5th largest economy in the world with just under 3 trillion in production on an annual basis. And we know that the 1.3 billion people of this continent actually have the greatest demographic dividend to be reaped in the 21st century, with the largest percentage of young people on the planet Earth today to be found on the continent of Africa. If there is to be a future for these young people in Africa, then that future must be shaped not just by those who tell us what to do, but must also be shaped by those who experience what it is to provide for the 1.3 billion people on this continent. My friends, we stand in solidarity and in unity with you on these great issues. And I can do no better than to quote your own founder leader in his wise words as he addressed the OAU summit in May of 1963, when your president said, and I quote, "Do we have any other weapon against this design but our unity? Is not our unity essential to guard our own freedom as well as to win freedom for our oppressed brothers, the freedom fighters? Is it not unity alone that can weld us into an effective force, capable of creating our own progress and making a valuable contribution to world peace? We must stand united now more than ever. And the calls to remove a member of the P5 this week only serve to remind us of the absolute injustice and inequity of the P5, the permanent 5 in the Security Council in the first place. And that is why we say there can be no first-class or second-class nations of the world. It came to a head, an absolute head, when the one that was given the power to veto literally this week ensured that that veto literally made the United Nations almost useless in its capacity to save the people of Ukraine as they face down the weapons of Russia. We say today that it is not only there that there must be change. We ask the world to also recognize that the international financial institutions cannot accept that two countries, namely Greece and Ghana, can go to the market to borrow money, have the same credit rating, but Greece must be able to borrow, and regrettably, at a fraction of what Ghana must now pay for the cost of capital. That is and cannot be part of a fair and just world in the 21st century. And why must it change? Because in a very real sense, even though we settled the individual rights to protect each and every one of us, at the formation of the United Nations, we preserved an old colonial order of empires having the right to determine what the global community should look like. We now know that it does not work. And we now know that the time has come to work together to change it for the betterment of the nations of the world altogether, yes, but in particular for the betterment of the people of our nations who were suppressed and colonized, regrettably, for too long. My friends, I ask us also to recognize that in today's world, technology makes geography and size almost irrelevant. And therefore it gives us that unique opportunity, and certainly as we have done in the Caribbean and in my own country, to assert that the time has come to reclaim our Atlantic destiny, that the time has come for strong strategic leadership. And that is why we have come to look to you on so many things for partnership as you have looked with us. I stand here today on your Independence Day to thank the people of Ghana for being able to support us in our need for nurses, with the first 95 nurses having gone to Barbados in July of 2020. We thank you, the government and people of Ghana, for that most generous gesture. And we are heartened that they have made a huge difference to our public health care system. So much so that we have just completed interviews for just under another 200 nurses to come to Barbados in the near future. We thank you equally for allowing us to work together to see how we can bridge the gap of travel between our nations. It cannot be acceptable that we must all go north to come back south when we can easily go east or west. To go 7 hours and 50 minutes to London is much longer than if I would have come direct to Accra. It is within our grasp, Mr. President, to change these simple facts to connect our people. And all the more so because there are too many restrictions being placed on our people, even for the simple access of transit visas, even if we want to visit one another. We are independent, and we must now shape our future truly in the image of where we want our people to go, rather than being victims of the decisions of others over whom we have little control. I am happy that we were able equally to establish in the last year a mission, an embassy in this country to be able to promote trade, culture, and diplomacy. And the Barbados Embassy at Ghana in Accra is one of our first that have been established in the continent of Africa, along with our embassy at Nairobi. That it has taken 55 years for us to have a presence in Africa is a regrettable thing. That it has happened is something of which we can all be proud, for it lays the foundation for greater cooperation between our people in the small and the large things that matter. Mr. President and the people of Ghana, let me say that I want to share just a few 2 minutes with you about who we are as Barbadians and what we stand for. We are a people who are very proud. And we know, as I did and said when I addressed your parliament, that we were an Akan-speaking nation in the 17th century, that many of our people owe their inheritance to this great nation. And it is that spirit of resilience that you have shared with us that has come through the centuries in spite of the horrors of slavery. That for us, on 166 square miles, land means everything. And therefore, not just the possession of land, but the ownership of land must matter. That in our country, and I say so conscious that here in the Cape Coast, education has been critical to you in this part of Ghana. Equally, education is a bedrock upon which our nation has grown and has become more stable and prosperous. I say to you that it is our mission to erase poverty from our landscape, because poverty is a cancer that takes away from our people the right to choose and the right to be. And I share with you two simple things that perhaps say it better than I could ever say. For when we became an independent nation and the President of the United States of America, Lyndon Johnson, offered to pay our dues to join the Organization of American States, the then Prime Minister and Father of Independence, the Right Excellent Errol Barrow, said to him, "Mr. President, where I come from, if you cannot afford to pay the dues, you do not join the club." That is who we are as Barbadian people. And when he went to deliver the first message on behalf of our people at the United Nations, he indicated something that has remained our motto and our bedrock, and which serves us well today, even as we comment on the crisis in Ukraine, that we shall be friends of all and satellites of none. This is a spirit which was imbued of us, and we have no doubt that that spirit owes its heritage to right here where I speak today, in the continent of Africa, because that is what allowed us to keep our heads high in spite of all that we had to face. Today, as we go forward, we simply use the words, as I've had to do over the last 4 years in my country, as we ourselves face serious economic difficulties and challenges, as we face the climate crisis and the pandemic. And what were those simple words? Simple that our children understand. Many hands make light work. And just as we are prepared to share the burden of adjustment always, we must be prepared to share the bounty that can allow our people always to aspire and to feel that they live as owners in their own country and not tenants in the land. My friends, I ask us once, please, before we go and I close, to reflect on the fact that it was from this coast, regrettably, that many people left. Yes, never to return at that time, but with a wish always in our bosom that their children and great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren would come back to this land. We are conscious it is emotional. We are conscious that those who put your family in those castles, those horror houses, whether here or in Gorée, did it because they simply did not see you, hear you, or care for you, and did it solely for the purpose of profit and solely for the purpose of power and dominion. It is regrettable that those same motives are showing themselves on the landscape of the world today. And if ever there is a people who can speak out against it with a moral authority, if ever there is the capacity for global moral strategic leadership, Mr. President, it must come from those of us who were affected on both sides of the Atlantic, those of you who lost brothers and sisters, and those of us whose great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents suffered the indignity of being treated less than human. We have come to this point today to say to these young people who sit opposite me that it must never happen again. And to ensure that it shall never happen again, we shall build monuments that you shall never forget. And it is therefore with pleasure that I share with you today that one of your own